For God's sake, please talk. I have, for most of my life, been an introvert, kept things to myself, bottled it inside, and some of it has manifested in anger. And when it simmers, at some point it will explode.
Anger is more convenient because it's more acceptable.
If possible, seek professional help. Because if you do not do that, you're doing yourself and people around you a lot of disservice.
You're watching Zen-Brain. Someone wise once said, real wisdom comes from everyday missteps, awkward pauses, and quiet realizations. If you're on a self-awareness journey, I found a perfect place to begin. Rajen Garabadu's Nuggets from Lived Experiences. I would describe it as a tapestry of simple yet thought-provoking realizations of everyday situations, real work challenges, ambition, on what makes great leaders, the fear of being a parent. It takes you on short rides through personal struggles with stress, with illness, and trying to achieve a life of balance, something which is almost impossible and unheard of in mainstream media. This book also journeys through loss, fear, even impulsivity, but almost always manages one underlining thought of making the best out of your everyday, day after day, and the attempt to live a full life despite the hovering uncertainty of the future. If, again I repeat, you're on a self-awareness journey, this is a book which provides for perfect prompts for your own further reflections. So it would be worthwhile to read and write your own perhaps. And overall, what's remarkable is that it's written by a man. In a society that celebrates toxic masculinity and almost shuns gentleness, empathy, and sensitivity in boys, this is quite an achievement, and that's why we just had to get Rajen. Rajen is an award-winning producer with nearly 3 decades of broadcast experience and is also a former colleague, although we've never really had the opportunity to work together, right, Rajen? I'll tell you one thing, ask anyone and they will tell you. He's one of the nicest people you'll meet. And that is, I feel, the best compliment you can give anyone. Something we tend to overlook. I've actually rediscovered Rajen through his very consistent writing on LinkedIn. Rajen, thank you for being here on Zen-Brain. And first of all, here's wishing you a very happy birthday.
Thank you, Shruti, for your birthday wishes and for the excellently put. I don't think I would have been able to describe my book and the writing as eloquently as you have, but that's always been the case. I remember you very fondly as somebody who speaks as well as she writes, which is not the case with me.
That's not true at all. You know, you obviously write so beautifully. But let me start with something. Was it easy writing this book, Rajen, and talking about topics that are otherwise not really openly discussed and certainly not written by men?
One of the reasons why I wrote the book is because of that. Because these are not topics openly discussed.
Correct.
But I felt that I had some things to share, and these were obviously my feelings. I thought that there may be something which will probably resonate with others as well. They might not openly say it, but once they hear somebody else write or say this, they will probably stop feeling that they'll stop feeling uncomfortable about it, or won't be perhaps shy to express it because somebody else has done it.
Correct. One of the chapters that I've actually put a marker on is engage with rage. And you openly talk about your own struggle with anger. You know, the reason why I bring this up, Rajan, is also in a society like ours, anger is perhaps more acceptable than male vulnerability. And the ability to be emotional as a man is often ridiculed. So in this scenario, how did you personally learn to process and express emotions?
So Shruti, good you asked this because when I remember when I was growing up as a child, anger was absolutely okay in my family, and it was a patriarchal family, and you won't believe it. Some elderly women they loved the fact that their husbands or their children were angry and they were male in that sense, the alpha male. So they spoke proudly about it. Anger was okay if but crying, vulnerability in a male was not okay. So if I have behaved, let's say, in a not so pleasant manner outside with somebody else and come back home, they're okay with it. But the fact that you can be emotional, or you openly express it, is perhaps not as okay as that. I actually remember a time that as a teenager, my younger cousin passed away. He was my favorite cousin. He was 2 years younger to me. I loved him dearly. Wonderful guy. I had spent about 2 weeks with him. 3 months before he passed away, we went on a summer vacation to Mumbai, spent some great quality time together. He passed away, Shruti. I did not shed a tear. Not because I didn't love him or I didn't feel for him, because that's how I was conditioned. And I remember my father, when he got this news and he left for the funeral, he felt that it's not proper to take me because I was extremely close to him. So my father and mother actually left me at home and left and went to they went to Bhubaneswar from Cuttack to attend the funeral. I remember staying at home alone, trying to relive the moments that I spent with him 3 months back. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't cry. At some point, I felt something is wrong with me. How can I not cry? But that's how I was. That's how it's conditioning. And over time, that changed. Probably fatherhood played a big role in it. Now I watch a series on OTT and I cry. Same person. I haven't changed as such, but my emotions have gone through complete metamorphosis.
Do you think, Rajan, that anger is also almost an outlet for all your suppressed emotions? Anger is more convenient because it's more acceptable.
It is more acceptable. For me, it came naturally. I call this a rowdy gene. My dad used to lose his temper at the drop of a hat, and I picked that up. He would cool down equally fast, extremely lovable, extremely kind, but when he would get angry, he would just lose it. His anger was heard and known of across the city in that sense. I grew up watching that and unconsciously picked that up. And sadly, my daughter has picked that up. And this is perhaps my biggest, and if I may say, my only regret, that this is something which I couldn't control. I wish I had controlled it. I didn't do it. And my daughter has seen me, and now she mimics the same expression that I exhibit in that sense. When I get angry, I feel so bad. This is entirely me. I am responsible.
But admitting to the fact that it's still work in progress, that itself is a huge achievement. And I think with you talking about it would almost permit other men to do the same, to feel the same. And I think that's the first step. And that's why I say this is such a great book to begin with if you're on this self-discovery journey, reading your nuggets and then perhaps writing your own. That would be just such a wonderful, liberating experience for anyone. And now, Rajan, let me bring in the workplace here. What are the ways you think organizations can create safer emotional spaces for women? Yes, but definitely also for men, especially those who have been taught to say, you shouldn't express your feelings, or boys don't cry.
Boys don't cry is one part of it. We've spoken about it. The other bit is, things like consent. As males, we tend to take certain things for granted. Before you even talk about it, you ask if there's a lady in the room. So I grew up mostly interacting with males. You talk in a certain way. Subsequently, when there are ladies in the room, somewhere you do not realize that this is something which may not be acceptable to them. There's certain things which we as males take for granted, and that happens in the workplace too. It's slowly changing. Now every organization by law, it's mandated to have something called POSH, prevention of sexual harassment, and every office needs to ensure compliance. So I think what most men almost people I just met don't realize is that, we tend to feel that we didn't mean it. We do something and we say, oh, Shruti, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. The law is very clear. It's not what you mean or it's not your intent. It's the impact. You may not have meant it, but if she or he has has been impacted by that, it's bad enough. Things are changing. There is hope, but we have a long way to go.
This is one of those larger discussions to have. Yes, we are talking about women a lot, and we must continue to do that. What about the men? How do you ensure these emotionally safe spaces for men too?
That requires a lot of work, Shruti. I can tell you that not much is happening there. Men who are more emotional have to find their own ways of dealing with it because there really isn't too much support. Support in that sense, if you go and seek professional help,
Yes,
that is possibly you'll get more support. You'll get the right kind of support. Till a few years back, going for therapy was unheard of. It's like, if I'm not mad. Why should I go to a shrink? Now, in that sense, toxic masculinity, you spoke about it some time back. It's still there, but, it's wearing smarter clothes in that sense. The good part of it is that many men now realize that it's absolutely okay to go seek help, to go for therapy. If I'm uncomfortable in my home, my office, or whatever, because my being emotional is something which my other male colleagues feel that, I'm not male enough or whatever, and that they kind of make fun of it, then I need to find, instead of going into a shell and retreating or whatever, feeling miserable about it, I need to help myself. And if I can't do that on my own, then I need to seek help. And there is professional help available, and they're great therapists. Not many are going, but I think things are getting better every year.
I've often seen men, especially in leadership, feeling the need to perform strength, right? Have you ever found yourself doing that? And what did you learn from that experience?
My perception, my view of strength is very different from what I thought of strength many years back. When I was growing up, my view of strength was being silent, the strong, silent types. That's how I grew up in my teenage years. The very fact that I would not cry, I wore it as a badge of honor. But now I realize strength is accepting that, I'm tired. I can't do this. I don't know this. You and we have worked in newsrooms before. 24/7 live news comes with a series of its own challenges. There are pressures. There's pressure to perform. You can be completely bogged down. You can get fatigued. You can be emotionally drained. Strength is saying, I can't do this. I need time off to process. It's not about doing this day in and day out and, being okay about it. One of my reasons of talking to you and writing is also that to sort of make this the new normal. I mean, there are many people who probably feel like me, but don't say it because they're not sure. Strength is accepting that, sorry, I can't.
100%. And you were talking about the newsroom, Rajan. In my personal experience, I became somebody I'm not intrinsically, which was completely aggressive and rude. And, for me, now in retrospect, I think my greatest strength was walking away from that, from what I was uncomfortable with. And I know you write about it in your book. You were in jobs where you were not intrinsically aligned to what they were doing or they expected out of you. And so you chose to walk away. And I think strength lies in what was our earlier perception of weakness, that is walking away. And I think that can be sometimes the greatest strength. So well said, Rajan, well said there. The one skill that you wish you learned earlier, what would that be?
The ability to not react impulsively, to think it through, to sleep over it. Intrinsically, I'm somebody who, reacts impulsively. That is something which hasn't gone well for me. And there have been times when I've actually slept over it, when I haven't taken a decision impulsively, and it's worked out very differently from what if I had actually taken that decision impulsively. So I wish I was able to be less impulsive and think and process it more before opening my mouth.
There's something about hindsight that brings such clarity, isn't there? Let's talk about the unlearning process, right? We often talk about growth, but unlearning can be just as, if not more, transformational. What did you have to unlearn in your own emotional journey?
Personally, I began to unlearn that crying is fine. You're not less of a male if you cry. At work, I have had the privilege of leading very large teams. To be decisive in that sense in your actions is something which is a which leaders are expected. You are able to take quick decisions. You're able to decide, on the fly. So what happens is that you tend to take a lot of decisions by yourself. But when you're leading large teams, you're not just deciding for yourself. You're deciding for the team. And over time, I began to realize that it can't happen by I just sitting and taking a decision. I started to involve other people and hear them out. The final decision is mine. But after hearing, after a conversation, I became inclusive in my approach. The meetings, I would hear more, speak less. I think that came as a process of unlearning and as a process of leading teams over a few decades.
So, if you had the chance to speak directly to young men trying to make sense of their inner world, what would you say to them?
Sometimes, we haven't figured it out. When I was growing up, my classmates in class 4, 5, 6 knew exactly what they wanted to do. I didn't. And slowly, what I wanted to do also began changing over the years. 10 plus 2, I wanted to be a civil servant, and I entered into graduation. I wanted to get into a business management kind of a role. And subsequently, things changed, and you know where I am right now. There's a lot of pressure. It could be peer pressure or whatever, societal pressure, where people feel that, oh no, I don't know what I want to be or where I want to be, and that's something which makes me whatever weak or inadequate or etc. Nothing. I think that's not the case. If you haven't figured it out, that's absolutely normal. Be true to yourself. Do not be somebody else. Even if you may not feel that being yourself is something which may be attractive, but doesn't matter. You've got to be authentic. Many people have told me over the years, and even now do not speak your mind. A lot of times I say something which are not really palatable. But as long as I'm not being offensive or rude, I have always believed in saying what I feel.
I've really enjoyed reading your book, Rajan. I have to admit, and I enjoy your writing on LinkedIn also because it's thought provoking. It may not answer all questions that I have, but it helps me, introspect. And I think that's why I'm emphasizing the need for people who have started on this journey of self-reflection and self-awareness to pick up something like this so that it enables you to think. I think we've stopped doing that. I started Zen-Brain with just one thing in mind, that we would have conversations which were free-flowing, which would discuss things which were otherwise not being discussed. It somehow went into areas of mental and emotional health. Each and every part of you, whether it's mental, physical, emotional health, they are all connected to each other. Even the way we release our hormones is related to how happy we are, how motivated we are. I think all of us will go through times where we will need support, maybe of a good friend, but if that doesn't help, seek mental health professionals that are out there.
So first of all, thank you, Shruti, for starting Zen-Brain and what you're doing right now, because this is a conversation that is not had as much as it should be. So the fact that you're trying to normalize this, having conversations is really good, because what happens when people like you do this, then a lot of people who are hesitant to talk about it or feel that, maybe if I speak about it, I'll be looked at in a particular way or perceived in a certain way. They realize, no, it's absolutely normal. Shruti is doing it. She's talking about it. There are people joining the platform, having conversations. It's absolutely okay. So then they slowly start realizing that's normal. Mental health is as, or if not more important than physical health. There are some people who are able to handle it themselves. There are some who suffer, probably end up taking some wrong decisions, including taking their life. Because he or she felt that, I can't discuss it. It's wrong because I've perceived it a certain way. The family loses a loved one. It's something which can't come back. For something which was as simple as seeking help, you end up losing a life.
Thank you for this honest and generous conversation, Rajan. I think it will leave a lot of people feeling not just seen, but also just a little more courageous about being themselves. Wishing you a very, very happy birthday, and I hope you have a healthiest of years ahead.
May Zen-Brain grow from strength to strength. For God's sake, please talk. Do not bottle it up yourself. I have, for most of my life, been an introvert, kept things to myself, bottled it inside, and some of it has manifested in anger. And when it simmers, at some point it will explode. So it's best to talk. If possible, seek professional help. Because if you do not do that, you're doing yourself and people around you a lot of disservice.
Well, I'd just like to end with something that I had discussed only last week, which is on the platform for anyone to watch. And it's a discussion on chemical imbalance. We don't know what comes first, whether it's mental health issues that lead to a chemical imbalance, which then leads to other complications, or chemical imbalance leads to mental health issues. Talking to a professional actually helps. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol. When you process things, the release of cortisol is decreased and you get better. And then you are able to live a fuller, healthier life. So talk therapy is not just talking. It also does something chemically. On that note, thank you very much, Rajan.
Thank you, Shruti. Thank you so much.